to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience-backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, it's Chris, and welcome to Leading the Way. I am so delighted to have this amazing guest, Dr. Etel Leit. Thank you so much for being on the show today. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much. I was waiting for it for a long time. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yes, sorry for the delay, but I'm excited you're here now. So I want to tell folks a little bit about you. I mean, you, of course, know about you. I know about you, but they don't know how great you are yet. So let me walk through some of your amazing accomplishments. Dr. Leitz, she's a prominent figure in psychology and education, as well as being a leading human communication researcher. She's the founder of Sunshine, which is a family center in Beverly Hills, and she's a faculty member in psychology and MBA programs at Palo Alto Sophia University and Cambridge College in Boston. Dr. Leit holds a PhD in psychology and earned her master's degrees in leadership and education from Pepperdine. Her academic journey actually began as a linguist following her service as a commander in the Israeli intelligence. Dr. Leit has conducted extensive research in the dynamics of effective communication, making her a sought-after expert in the business world. She's a recognized presence on TV. You've probably seen her before on CNN, NBC, Brian Williams Evening News, KTLA Morning Show, and Fox 11, and she counts many celebrities among her clients. She's the author of 4 books, including her bestseller, Unaddicted to You, and her latest book, The Emotional Code, which was published in 24 and is available at Barnes & Noble. Dr. Leit is also a proud mother of 2. Again, Dr. Leit, delighted to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Light Delight. I am really excited because this is a subject that is not really spoken in podcasts, and your podcast is really interesting. Mainly, I go to podcasts that speak only about relationships within family or a romantic relationship. And today, we're going to share other information, and I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I know you're the relationship expert,
Mhm.
and I know a little bit about codependency being a blocker or something that's just not healthy in our personal relationships. Tell me a little bit more about that. How does codependency get in the way of us being successful in personal relationships?
Yeah. So as long as we rely on somebody else's responses or feedback to us, we are dependent on someone else, right?
Mm,
Dependency can be in many, many ways. It can be emotional dependency, financial dependency, mental dependency, obviously physical dependency. And when we're kids, we're dependent, right? We start our life in a micro and a macro, right? So the
yeah,
micro is our family. And we are, when we are babies, we are fully 100% dependent on our parents, right?
right.
It's a healthy thing. It's something that's how we learn about our dynamics with other people. And I know some people think, oh my God, but my parents or my parents didn't do anything. It's really not about blaming, shaming, or about taking accountability. It's about just looking, how did you learn to communicate?
Hmm.
How did you do it? And then looking at the macros. So the macro starts really with your siblings, if you had siblings, or if not, your cousins or your grandparents, because that's how it grows. And then your neighbors, and then your friends when you went to school. And that's how the circle opens until when you're adult, hopefully, you are at the workplace and you conducted communication with other people. But it's all start with, I'm actually dependent on other people.
Mm,
Because if my mom was happy and my mom was relaxed, I felt this soothing experience, right?
right,
If my home was chaotic and my parents were fighting, or there was, absence of one of the parents, I feel the void and I'm dependent on this quiet time. And that takes us to adulthood.
right,
Interesting, right?
right. So a lot of us like to pretend sometimes that our work life and our personal lives are separate, and there is some separation, but we're bringing the same human to both. So do those codependent relationships carry over into the workplace, and is there things that we can work on there?
It is such a great question, Chris. I work with many companies. I actually see their employees and I see them individually, not only as a group. So I see them individually. And what do you think I talk with the individual employers when I meet them one on one?
Codependency.
It's about the relationship with their family.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is how they open. We talk about the relationship at home with the parents or with the siblings. This is how we open this relationship. And then first of all, the trust is there. So they're like, oh, you didn't come from my boss. You really like care about me. Then we apply it to, how do you really communicate at work? Are you
Mm.
really, there is codependency issues, and how do you react when you feel dangerous? How do you react when you feel someone is upset? How do you feel when someone is happy? And we're going to delve into it. Um, and that's the core. There is no like life and workplace. It's all together, especially now. I mean,
Right.
people work on Zoom, they're actually at home. There is a lot of dynamics that go at home and go at work. And many people used to say, at least in previous generation, work is my second family,
Right.
or not, with all the dynamics.
Right. Well, and you just alluded to too, we used to have this time between our home and our work and our commutes, even though we might not have liked traffic, we had this pause
Right.
and this natural break where we could kind of shift gears and be someone else. And that's different now for most of us, at least part of the time. Are you seeing different behavior patterns because of that change?
Yeah, we used to have transitions, right?
Right.
Transition used to linger. And as you think about it, generation, we used to have more transition even between knowledge that brought to us. So, and I'm going to go back to the codependency, but let's
Yeah.
talk about the transition within time, right? Let's talk about you and I, right? Because we are not the youngsters. And when we wanted to know information, when you wanted to know information when you were a child, what did you do?
Ask my parents.
Exactly. We asked our
Yeah.
parents, sometimes they had the answer and we had to wait for them to come from work or finish talking on the phone or do the dishes. We had to wait for the information, right?
Right.
If they didn't know the answer, we used to go for another caregiver like grandpa, grandma. And if we were really excelling in school, we used to go to the teacher or go in the encyclopedia. Like I know that these days today, I'm like, what is encyclopedia? Like a book, right? Today, what do you think the kids of today, the generation of today, do when they want to know information?
They talk to Siri or Google or something like that. Yeah.
They used to go to Google, not even Google, but it started with Gemini. So they go to Siri, they go to ChatGPT, and guess what? They go to social media. Oftentimes they will find
Mm.
answer in social media. They will rely on TikTok or in YouTube for a demo to do something rather than go to a parent or a friend. Why?
Right.
Because it's shorter.
Right.
And then you get 7 billion people information in one snapshot. That's my fourth book that I wrote. The Emotional Code is how AI interfere with relationship. There is one chapter which talks all about a workplace.
Mm.
Now transitions become faster, right? It's not any longer, I will wait for my information. I need to know it now. Now, how is
Right.
that affected? It affects in two ways. First, the plasticity of the brain. You and I, have a linear brain. It
Right.
goes to 1, 2, 3. This young generation, they have what I call the spider web brain, right?
Hmm.
They go and they look at YouTube on something, or they go on Siri, or they go on, ChatGPT, and that reminds them of something else. Then they go, and it's like literally the brain plasticity is changing. How fascinating. And if
Absolutely.
workplaces or managers or leaders are not going to understand that, they're still going to operate from the old way of doing things. But we need to adapt as an employee, as a worker, but also as a manager or leader, as a
Right.
CEO. We need to adapt to this new way of thinking and to cater to that and understand that transition is not any longer being, I would say this way, respected, and we should
Sure.
give it some space. We should give it some time. People are expected to do things really fast, right in here, and not to give some time to emotions or to what is really going on in the process. It's like yesterday, I needed yesterday, right?
Right. Right. Well, it's so interesting too because the go-to, I think parenting skills and leadership skills, there's a lot of overlap there, and that parents don't want to be told how to parent, right? We're perfect parents, and don't you dare tell me how to parent my kids. And I see similar attitudes with leaders as well. Don't you dare tell me how to lead until we encounter a blind spot. Something happens, and our go-to program, command, control, punishment, reward, whatever it is, just stops working or doesn't work as well. And you said it so well, and there's less transitions, and we're not really relating to the human being. We're so task focused that we miss that as a leader, we're here to set up our team to win and serve our customers or clients. Right. And that really is the result. I think that can get missed a lot. I don't know if you see that in your work or not.
To the listeners now, whoever is a team leader, I wanted to think one thing, like listeners, think about this question. Are you a leader or are you a manager?
Mm.
Think about yourself. Are you a manager or are you a leader? Manager, as you said, is the task. There are tasks to do, let's fill it in 1, 2, 3, 4. What is not filled in, we're going to go through that. That's the goal. The goal is to do things as easier and smooth way, right?
Right.
The leader. And as you said, I was a commander in the Israeli intelligence. So we there learn how to be leaders. The Israeli army, not to get into politics here at all, I just want to show it's one of the only armies that the commander goes first. In army, the soldiers go first and then the commander. So, just tactic.
Yeah.
In the Israeli intelligence, in the Israeli army, the commander goes first and then the soldiers. What's wrong, right? I don't know. I'm just giving kind of like a fact right now. But it's
Right.
interesting when you think about yourself, listener, in the workplace, what would you like to be? How do you like to perceive? How do you like to take your responsibility as a manager or as a leader? And a leader is someone that really brings his personality into it,
Yeah.
brings its example. What am I carrying in that? And that's a little bit more. And what it requires is actually to be vulnerable. It actually does require to open myself. And you said parenting. The one thing that I talk about parenting again and again and again, when your kids come to the car, when you pick up your kids, when you have dinner with your kids, when you have interaction with your kids, stop asking them the one question: how was your day?
Yep.
Unless you want an answer, good, fine, okay.
Right.
Right? Don't ask them that. You are the parent, right? So by what I said now, if you would start with, oh my God, today I had such an amazing podcast with Chris Reeves and it was great. And, we talked about work, and then pause and wait for their question. What do you think will happen if you would ask them, wow, what was really upsetting to you in school today? Or what was really funny in class today? Or
You
what
get
would
more than a one-word answer usually. Yeah.
exactly?
Yeah.
Because you open up, you being vulnerable, you told them about the day and it opens up.
Right.
So oftentimes parents come as the managers. Okay, now you do this, you do that, you do that. Be vulnerable. Open yourself to your children. Talk about feelings. Put the phones away. And
Yeah.
you will open a whole new experience to the children, exactly at the workplace. Try to be vulnerable a little bit, and you will find amazing things coming from your employees or people under you.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of leaders can feel overwhelmed by being vulnerable. This isn't about showing your deepest, darkest secrets, but that's not where we're going. But also, are there healthy boundaries in the workplace? Because it's our second family, but really it's not our family, right? There's some things that just probably aren't best brought up. Are there lines that you recommend there, or barriers that folks should do
Love,
to stay healthy?
I love the question of boundaries.
Yeah.
It's people always. I actually have a whole course about how to set healthy boundaries on my website. It's like a 7, short episode of like, how do you set healthy boundaries, right? People are afraid of it.
Mm.
They're not afraid of the boundary because they're afraid of how the other person is going to really stake these boundaries. Do I
Okay.
look tough? Are they going to do it? What are they going to do if not? So let's start with the one thing about boundaries. Boundaries are never to the other person.
Mm.
Boundaries are always for you, right?
Ah.
Always for you. When you set a boundary, it doesn't matter if with your child, with your parent, with your partner, and at work, it's always for you. Because what happens when can you give me like a boundary that you think that is a healthy boundary to put at workplace?
Work one would be maybe we don't talk about religion or politics.
Yeah, we don't. I love it. We don't talk about religion or politics. That's, by the way, that's my boundary with my friends. I don't talk about boundary. I don't. I'll never
Smart.
convince someone to use a PC when I'm using a Mac. I will never do it unless they ask me and they say, "Oh, Etel, what do you think about using a Mac?" I can tell them everything about my Mac, but that's not everything. But I could,
Right.
right? So yeah, that's a great boundary. Now, you can set this boundary, but what happens when you have someone that comes and talks about politics or religion? It's something happens in the news, they come and they talk about it. And this is the boundary. You have to not only set the boundary, but sit with yourself and think, then what am I going to do?
Right.
What are the consequences to the other person? Because that's easy. Oh, this person is going to be like, and then we get really extreme. Am
Mm.
I going to really, let's say I say this person is going to be forbidden to come for work for a week. I just punished myself. I lost a workforce
Yeah. Yeah.
and I lost relationship with this person. So but what am I benefiting by putting this boundary? More important, what happens if this boundary is being broken to
Mm,
yourself? And then you become a leader and not
right.
a, then it's not a cause and effect. You do it, you got punished or consequences. Then I become a leader. Then I become, as I said, vulnerable to myself. What am I carrying in it?
I love that. And I used to say this jokingly with my vendors when I was in corporate, but I would say, a relationship's formed when you go through a hard time with someone together. When it's easy at work, everything's happy. That's not really a relationship, but you go through something hard, and or small thing hard, right? Maybe this person crossed a boundary and you have that difficult conversation, like, hey, we had this agreement that this wasn't going to happen. This happened. How do we clean it up? Now you've got a relationship, right? And that's a lot stronger. And I think people can miss that. We can just everything's going fine and that's a relationship. No,
Yeah,
it's not.
it's the honeymoon of a relationship. So, do you want to talk about the F word?
Sure.
Yes, let's talk about the F word. I usually don't use the F word, but let's talk about the F word.
Yeah.
It's actually four F's, and let's talk about how people react and what happens in their body, in their brain, in their emotions when they feel threat, or when they feel attacked, or when they feel dangerous. And for each person, it could be somebody else, something else. So for one person is when they need to say something that is uncomfortable. For other
Mm,
people is when their boss is really upset with them, when there is a task that was not, uh, anything at work that is not the honeymoon, right?
right.
What
Right.
happened? So actually, I want us to take a tour to 5,000 years ago, right? When we have the primitive brain, right? And we were hunting, right?
Yes.
Didn't go to work in the office, and we were hunting. And man was hunting, and all of a sudden, and I'm going to do a little noise. I hope it's not going to be too noisy here on the podcast. They hear a really big thump.
Right.
Oh my God, that's a huge animal coming, right? What animal it could be coming? I don't know. Like, who knows? Do you have an idea of big animal?
They always saber-toothed tiger, some sort of thing that's going to eat
Yeah,
you, right?
big lion, exactly. They're gonna eat you.
Right.
So different hunters will actually react differently. And listeners, what would you do? I'm going to pause for a second. Think, what would you do if you're hunting and you hear a huge lion, even, I don't know, maybe a species that not exist today, coming towards you? So the first instinct will you do what? For you, maybe, if I can put you on the spot. Would you like, Chris? Or I'll just gonna
Sure. I'm a flight. I'm running. I'm hauling butt out of
right.
there.
You're running. Like there's no way I can, beat this line. You're flying, and also you're thinking about your wife and your children, and
Right.
back, and you're running. Flight. Exactly. Some people will be like, no, I'm gonna fight. And they're
Right.
gonna put friends and they're gonna attack this lion. That's the hunter of a fight. So there is flight, fight, which I'm sure everybody heard of. But there are two more F's, right? The third F is, do you know it? It's
Freeze.
freeze. Exactly. It's actually, pretending you're a tree and not moving. Okay. Unfortunately, it also happens because you're too afraid. And
Mm,
today, for example, many people, like a sexual abuse, people usually ask the victim, like, so why didn't you run? Or abusive relationship, it's on and on and going, like, so why aren't you leaving him? Or there is
right.
this freeze mode. It's the fear. The fear is so embedded that you can't even do anything. You actually freeze. Okay.
Mm.
The fifth one, which rarely people talk about, is fawn, Fawn, which you go to the lion and you offer the lion a deer or a
Ah,
sheep, because if the lion is going to have a deer or a sheep, then what?
probably not going to eat you, or at least not eat you first. Yep.
And then you'll have time to, go and sneak away. And
Right.
that's people pleasing. Okay.
Mm,
So let's go and see how the four works in a relationship between people. So the first is, as you said, is a flight. I mean, there's no order, by the way. It's just what we brought
right.
here. People can put in their our order, what your order is, and everyone do it the same. And as I said, because they're used to in the micro family and then in the macro world, right?
Mm,
First is to flight, right? Bye bye, I'm gone. Some
yep.
kids run to the room, put the blanket over their head, I'm gone, right? In the work office, I just had a big meeting about it. We actually analyzed each other in the workspace, and it was interesting. Everybody was laughing about it a little bit, but that's the truth. So some people would just go to the bathroom or not show they're sick because they're
Hmm.
afraid to from the confrontation, right? The
Right.
fight, I'm sure you heard these people in your office. Should I say
Yes.
anything else about the fight people?
Nope.
No. Right? You can hear them or you can get this nasty email from them. That's the fight
Right.
people, right? When they're upset, whoa, right? The freeze people are the people who just sit and do nothing and
Mm.
nothing. They're
Just not
waiting
engaged.
or not engaged. They're waiting for the storm, either because they really physically cannot do anything because they're frozen, or they're just waiting for the storm to pass. And Fawn are the people pleasing. Okay, of course, I'm gonna do it. And they go and they make coffee for everyone, or they send a gift for someone. And I'm so sorry, it's not gonna happen again. And really, really trying. And it's again all come from the childhood, right? Like some
Hmm.
people experience household which the mom or the dad or both were really, really, it was very chaotic or upset or angry with them, so immediately they fixed the room or brought A+ if anything like that, like home, so everything is going to be good, so nobody will be upset with them. Okay, so think about you in a workplace. When I say you, it's the listeners. What is your to-go reaction when you feel uncomfortable at work? What do you do? What do you do with your boss? What do you do with your employee? What do you do with your colleagues? Where do you go when it's really uncomfortable? When you literally feel dangerous, when you feel the animal comes in. And when you understand that, and that's why I said, relate workplace to your family of origin, because
Mm.
we learn these things.
Right.
When we are babies, we don't know about how to react. We learn it as we adapt to the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would imagine too, as we learn and have those patterns and our RAS wants us to repeat and all of that, and the adrenaline and cortisol is pumping. I mean, this is a speed of light, no pun intended, and chemical reaction
Yeah.
that's occurring like this. Like it's almost so automatic that can feel hard to interrupt, I would imagine, for many people.
Right. And as I said, it's a very, a transition in our time is easier. So many people will be like bored at work or stressed at work. For example, the freeze people, they will go to social media because
Mm.
dopamine is immediately you get dopamine for it. And it's
Right.
okay. And that's, I know, an issue that everybody's talking now about, like, okay, how much do we control, social media in our work? And for many people, it's an outlet to get a quick dopamine, a quick, transition so I can be
Sure.
good, so I can be back.
Right. Right. Wow. It, I would imagine, if a leader is really being conscious of all of this going on and wanting to serve folks, that creating an environment where everyone can be successful is a big challenge. It's not an undoable challenge. We know many leaders that do it, but it's very different than that manager role you gave before. That's kind of command and control. Um, what are the things leaders can do to really set their individuals and their teams up for a win, acknowledging who they really are and what their 4F responses might be.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a personal example, right? So, as you know, part of what I do, I have a big clinic with all of my clients, and I also teach at the university. And November 22, when ChatGPT came out, the way that teaching at the university completely, completely changed. I mean, I'm always the person who loves critical thinking and creative expression because I don't think that true learning comes from writing essays. This is not the way. But ChatGPT can do anything right now, or any other AI, right? I'm
Right.
actually writing a PhD class right as we were talking. I had a meeting, just I finished it. I'm writing a PhD class about AI and psychology,
Mm,
which is so interesting. Like, what is the limits? Like, can AI really replace people? Like, what is the human? I'm so excited about it.
yeah.
So, example about me, because I want to be a leader, I changed my curriculum. And instead of telling students, don't use AI, well, it's like
Right.
telling us don't use Google.
Right.
Ask them to use it in a way that will cater to them. So I know exactly who are the students who did cut and paste, never read it, right?
Sure.
And
Sure.
honestly, they can brainstorm with AI. AI can give all the information. AI not always quoting the right quotes. So AI loves to give links to articles, and it's
Right.
really not it's an empty one, right?
Right.
Or for example, I just had this assignment this week for my MBA class. I asked them to take a social media reel from 2023 and after, not something old,
Mm,
and to write the design and the Canva of marketing. How fun
mm,
is that? right? So when you're a leader, you really need to adapt to what is instead of coming with your managing tools that you already learned. The more you're going to adapt and see what's going on, and that's just a small example of what I did, you're going to be open-minded and you will be amazed how much your team is going to think out of the box and enrich you. I have
Right.
interns. I have interns from 2 universities who work on my social media because, as you know, I don't have enough time, right? They're amazing. And believe me, they teach me. And I asked them to teach me,
Right.
right? So some things I'm really good at, and some things I don't even know. Like I didn't know what real is until 2 years ago, and now I do. But
Right.
they teach me. So be teachable. And that's what I'm talking about, the vulnerability. Be honest to say, I'm really good at this, but I don't know X, Y, Z. Not everyone is knowing everything.
Right.
The beauty of the world is when you do something that you really love, there is not even one day you're going to go to work. It's something that you love. And I can see you're smiling and like
Oh,
agree.
100%. 100%. I was smiling too because when I've been able to tap into that, and I'm human and not been a perfect leader, and people listening that know me like, dude, you weren't like that years ago. I'm like, you're right, I wasn't. But later on, the more folks you can have working on that puzzle or creating the puzzle, one, it's way more fun. Two, you as a leader, it's not all on your shoulders anymore, which is frankly exhausting,
Mhm.
right? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, and then just the capabilities of the team and the engagement they're going to have. I mean, we're at all-time low in engagement in most places. And I think the Gallup poll recently said it's like 30% employee engagement. Not a surprise.
Nope.
And one of the ways I think to do that is these engaging leadership skills where we're reaching out to folks, we're meeting them where they're at, we're being empathetic, we're setting them up for a win and asking their help to solve the problem. Because that's, of course, going to light up their cerebral cortex, right? And they won't be in
That,
that primitive brain.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. They're
And
part
it's
of
a
the,
lot of fun.
yeah. And it's they're part of the team, right?
Yeah.
It's what creates a workplace, not a workplace, but really a team. You want to be a team member. You want to be from babyhood, you want to feel heard.
Mm,
And if you remember that as a leader, that everybody wants to feel heard,
yeah.
it's the only magic. That's it. Everybody wants to feel heard and everybody wants to be looked at what's good and not what's not. I
Right.
just had a conversation yesterday with a dad that was so frustrated. He tried to help his son with math assignment.
Mm,
He said, but I don't understand. I know the material and I try to help him. It's like, well, and I'm a great teacher and I know how to do it. And I said, yeah, but you try to teach your son, right?
yeah.
Okay. And this is where it's like, it doesn't go so well. It's like praise for what they know. Let the teacher, let school do that, unless they come and say, Dad, I need help. Or you can
Right.
say, would you like me to help you? Or would you like to do it by yourself? Be more respectful of their time when they're coming from, because the one thing this child is going to remember is Dad showed me something really good that I did.
Mm,
That what will take this child's self-esteem higher and higher, right? And it's okay.
absolutely.
It's little
And,
things. Yeah.
as you're saying, something else came to me too, is it's interesting, maybe early on as parents, some of that command control you need to do when you're showing like basic skills early on. It's very different. But then we make that transition to where your kiddo's an explorer and then that teenage transition where the role of the parent changes. I'm curious if there's overtones that match like the role of a individual contributor, manager, leader, right? There seem to be some parallels there of how you can most effectively show up.
I love it. So I have actually a sign in my studio when I have families and individuals, and there is one role of parents with their children. There is only one role. And the same thing applicable, of course, to the workplace. Teach your kids how to be independent.
Mm,
So even when you set rules in the house, it's not to set rules of bad or good, because we as a society, if you drive on red, that's something that you can do or not for your safety. If
right.
you drive on the left side when you can ride only in the right side. So that's how you teach at home. So all you do is teach your child how to be independent.
Mm.
I call it teach your kid how to swim, because you don't want to swim. You can swim for them, right? Same
Sure.
thing at workplace. You don't want to tell people on and on and on what to do. You want to show them, you want to guide them, you want to lead them, but you don't want to manage them. You want to teach them to be independent, because what happens when you have independent team that work together? Wow, your company
Amazing.
is just
Yeah.
going to grow. in ways that you can't even imagine because you don't spend time on the do's and don't.
Right.
They're all independent people and you trust them. So you spend time at first, right, parents, and then they become to be independent. How beautiful is that? I think it's the only role. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I think.
I 100% agree. I mean, I think there's some, the only thing I would add from my very limited experience
Mhm.
as a leader is in addition to that, my role as a leader is to look out for things that the team might not be aware of and remove those obstacles. Just, I mean, there's some little
Yeah.
tactics like that, but that's the same thing. I'm still keeping them independent and I'm just aware that, I don't want them to dive into that hill that they don't even know is there.
And that's why a good workplace is it's a place that the employees know that they can go higher in their position. If they're
Right.
stagnant, this place, and they know that they can go higher. So that's why they're independent on what they do. And then they can be now like, the team coordinator. There is a place to go and they being trustworthy. And that's a really alive and dynamic workplace. As long as you hire people that will do the same, some people want to do that, and that's also independency, right? But
Sure.
just they know that they can grow financially, grow in what they do. It's a great place to be. I want to be in a place that I know that I can grow and appreciate it, right? Sure.
Right, right. And I see it more, and it might just be because I'm older now, but I see it more and Gen Z and millennials that they want a connection to cause. And I reflect, I probably was that way in my 20s. I don't remember that well, but I think that's at every age we have different sort of needs and wants in the workplace in our life. I think that's another important part of leaders is to be kind of aware of what age of person you're talking to. And I don't mean like
Exactly.
chronological age, but where they are in their life.
Yeah.
Um,
And the whole thing with Gen Z and oh my God. So first of all, there is a research that comes out that when the youngest out of college, they have immense fear to even look for a job
mm,
because they're trained to be so successful. It's like I'm going to go back to the parenthood. We were the latchkeys kids, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I was a
yep,
latchkey.
absolutely, absolutely.
There was no cell phones. We did whatever. We came home. This generation is actually the helicopter parents. It's
Yes.
not only not a latchkey, but today there's like, I mean, obviously I have two, trackers on our kids. We know
Yeah.
exactly where they are at every moment. And, when the child comes with like a picture from school, it's like, oh my God, this picture is amazing. And everything is great and everything is good. So as you said, I need to show what's the obstacles and correct. But some parents are afraid of it because they were the latchkeys. They want
Mm,
to make everything perfect for the children. So those kids who are now graduating from school, they have so much fear to even look for a job because
mm,
their mind they're going to fail.
mm.
Nobody's going to say that they're Picasso.
Right.
And when the gap between the reality and what happened at home is that big, then they're like, wow, but everybody on YouTube are making billions.
Sure they are. Just ask them. Yeah.
Course, right? And yeah, and that's the new research, which is really, really interesting. So it's
Mm,
amazing what you said, like know who you're talking to,
right.
right? And today, I mean, I don't know, when I was 18, I was out of the house, right? I mean, I was in the intelligence and then out. But today it's the lingering teenage years when they stay at home, you know, older than 18 or 20,
Right.
even 25. And there
Right.
are different dynamics in the house. And when is the calling to say, okay, goodbye, and where am I independent worker to myself and support myself?
Right. And so when those people like that maybe don't have their skills as developed yet, do they more quickly go to the four Fs? Is that what's happening in their brain? Because they
Mm.
just don't have the skill to handle that stressor in the moment.
Yeah, I don't know if there is more or less. We all go through the 4F,
Mm,
right? Well, unless we did the work, right? Unless you had an Etel, unless you did, or Chris, unless you did the work, and all it does, I call it the 3 A's. Now, everything that I work with is a lot of letters, but
yeah.
unless you did the awareness, so, oh, I'm aware that I'm reacting like that. Hmm. And then acceptance, that's the way that it is. And then you take the action to change it.
Okay.
But the first step, and that's what we did with the listener a little bit right now, is the awareness. What do I really do? And the best awareness is what do I do when it happens, when I feel triggered? What do I
Mm,
do?
Mm,
yelling and I'm escaping? Am I doing the silent treatment? What am I doing? Right? That's first the awareness. What do I do? So it's not more and less. It's just like, what do I do with it?
right.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned too the neuroplasticity. I mean, there's I don't remember how many, is it 10 trillion brain connections or more? So we have the capability of literally building different pathways. We don't have to be stuck with the same story our whole life, right?
Yeah. And when you do a work with a real coach, therapist, psychologist, whatever you do, you literally a good coach, a good therapist will help you change the neuropath in your brain. I just
Mm.
had a session yesterday with one of my clients, like literally change the automated thing that we are used to work on. Because think about it. I mean, if our listeners play video games, do you think they do? Some of
I'm
them.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Whether they admit it, own it, up to it or not, I'm sure they do, right?
So we are programmed,
Yeah.
we program because, oh, this is what our parents did, where our brain are programmed to respond, to react. When we have a pause in the reaction, this is where we change things.
Mm.
The neuropath. Because think about it, we always react the same way. It's almost like the programmer. I'm not good at video games.
No, no, it's cause and effect, right? It's yeah.
Exactly. I heard a term, what is it? NPC,
Hmm.
non-player
Uh,
reactivity. And
yeah, yeah.
right, I just heard this term, but I'm not good at it. So it's literally the programming of the game, how everybody is going to react when you interfere, when you have the awareness, oh, that's what I do, you interfere, you create a pause, you create time, you feel uncomfortable instead of going to the four F's. You're
Mm.
uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
grow, then again, and then you grow. And that's the real work of a very good coach.
Right.
With your kids, with your family, with your medical physicians, and
Yeah.
and then you see better results because when you evolve, we always want somebody else to change. If my boss would only be, if
Right.
my husband would only do, if my wife will only, if my kids, and I call it, I don't know, is it recorded? But if you don't see me, I'm holding two instruments.
Yes.
I'm holding a magnifying glass and I'm holding a mirror in the shape of a heart. And I call it, put down the magnifying glass and pick up the mirror.
Mm.
Stop trying to change somebody else so you can feel better.
Mm.
No, watch your four F's. Work with someone because you have to be accountable for someone else. I'm sure you know from your work with people. I know that you have to be accountable for a person. You can only do it by listening or to books, or you have to do your own way. My way is not your way or not his way.
Right.
Be accountable, look at the mirror, create some space, and you'll see some change.
So powerful and so amazing. So, Dr. Light, I know you're incredibly busy, but for folks listening that want to engage with you, certainly there's your book. We'll have that in the show notes. But what are some great ways for folks to engage with you and your work?
Thank you. So first, I have four books, and all
Okay.
of them are on Amazon or Barnes and Noble that they can read. And go to my website. I like to call it the playlist. Everybody has a playlist. You can find my playlist, not of the songs, of things that I like, and obviously my social media. I'm really big on Instagram, less on TikTok, but I have some TikTok, and I love, like, if anyone can shoot me an email, a DM, or even if they can repost the story and the post that we're going to put it, I'm going to respond. And I promise that one of the people that will put it on their story, I'm going to send my book with a little gift because I love gifts and I love great things. So I send gifts. It depends if you're a man or woman, we cater to that.
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Dr. Etel Leit, Leit. That's how you're going to find me.
Nice. We'll have that in the show notes. So if you're driving or on the treadmill, please don't hurt yourself. You'll find that later. But Dr. Light, before we close out, I ask all my guests, what's something you're grateful or thankful for today?
Oh my God, I love it. I ask it every day. And when you call my voicemail, I actually ask people not to leave me a voicemail, to leave me a message. What are they grateful for today? And I write it every day. And tonight, I'm going to write that I'm so grateful for you because you created some change in my brain to talk about it. And I'm also really, really grateful for my son because today my son took my TikTok shop. And I'm happy about that because my brain doesn't work like that.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Dr. Light, thank you so much for just a brilliant discussion. Really appreciate you being on the show. Love the work and love how you're showing up in the world, most importantly. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Listeners, if you want more amazing content like this, please make sure to do all the magical things for the algorithm, like, subscribe, and most importantly, share this with a friend. You probably know someone that could benefit from this message, and it's a very loving thing to do. So please be sure to do that and keep leading the way. Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.